Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you so much for the introduction. Um, Again, I'm Preet. I'm a junior at the Wharton School of Business, studying cognitive science and finance. I'm a junior. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to introduce my fellow panelists. So let's dive deeper into it. We have the pleasure of having Mr. Cyrille Arnould, who is the founder and CEO of Annycent Capital Partners. We have Shawnette Rochelle, who is the CEO and founder of Excellence Unbounded. And we have Santha Ramakrishnan, who is the Vice President, R&D Data Strategy and Governance at Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys.
Our pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank
Happy to
you
be here.
for having.
So just for our audience, let's dive deeper maybe into knowing more about each of the panelists. So maybe I'd love to hear more about your story. What pivotal moments in your life maybe inspired you to become an advocate for change? And maybe more on that, what sparked your journey into entrepreneurship?
Who should go first?
Anyone. It's
Maybe Cyrille, since you have the mic, start it.
you can
Go for it.
you can
All right.
take the lead.
Again, glad to be here, and just to position myself on the, carbon dating. I'm a Wharton grad from '91, and look, my after Wharton, I spent over 30 years in so-called development finance institutions, which I've loved enough, to stay there a long time. But came a time when I could no longer do there what I wanted to do and I thought should be done. And, there came a time of a crisis, and I thought, crisis either ends in bitterness or you say, okay, let's just turn into something, I want to do. So I left the EIB and set up an asset management company fully dedicated to using market mechanism to effect social and environmental change. And right now we're focused on the development of renewable energy on grid-connected industrial scale in developing countries, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa. I didn't start that yesterday. I think I've been doing for the last 20 years, at Europe Investment Bank. But there was so much we could achieve there. I just wanted to take it to a different plane. So that's in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Super exciting.
So I can go next. When I attended Wharton, I was still on active duty. And so after I graduated, I went back and taught at West Point for 3 years, and then follow-on assignments after that at the Pentagon and some other deployments and things. But throughout that period, I also had the opportunity to do the leadership coaching program at Georgetown. And that really unlocked for me something that had been present in my personality my entire life, which was that I really loved helping other people in their growth and development. Mm-hmm. And so from that point on, I started thinking about what the next chapter could look like and how I could position myself so that I would be able to help people. And after I retired from the Army, I took a sabbatical and went to 14 different countries across 6 continents over 13 months. And during that period, I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of entrepreneurs on the ground, learn about their challenges, how they were thinking about their challenges, and the consistent theme allowed me to then know, okay, I want to focus on this. Here's how I can have an impact.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So I am not an entrepreneur anywhere along this way, but I've had more like the entrepreneurial journey throughout. I have a PhD in biochemistry, and of course, then I wanted to be a scientist. And then serendipity brought me into a different set of circumstances where I discovered other talents that I have. And the most important one that still rings true and stays with me today is one of being a translator between disciplines, being at the interface of disciplines. It started off being at the interface of science and software. And so I moved from product development in science informatics companies, very entrepreneurial, must have been employee 10, something like that. And in fact, entrepreneurial within a whole organization also, in a large organization, and then moved on from there being a business development person, and then to management consulting. at Deloitte, and then into pharma from the outside, serving pharma clients, but then moving into where the action is in pharma. So throughout that journey, it has been not, I've been in some situations very entrepreneurial, but in all situations, I've had to set up something new, very different, very path-breaking, and different from what the company knew then. And so that has been an exciting ride throughout, and something that I'd like to share with you today.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Santha. I think that perfectly brings into my next couple of questions. But before I dive deeper into that, I want to like highlight two things that our panelists said. I think one thing, like entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's not like a job. It's not like a resume thing, like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. It can be defined in a very broad spectrum, right? Like it's all about taking risks. It's all about doing something which hasn't been done before, and in something in an innovative way, or like just like navigating, forging a path that hasn't been laid by the professional capitalistic society that all of us live in. So that was like the one thing that I took away from this. Also, another important thing that you mentioned is like, in order for us to like have a change, right, we need to face some kind of difficulty. We need to have some kind of challenges that we overcome. And I'm curious, like, if our panelists can talk about maybe like some of the biggest challenges that they've faced, as young advocates for change, I guess. And Santha, I think I would also classify you as an entrepreneur because you have done very entrepreneurial things and you've been part of the community as well. So yeah, throughout that journey, some of the biggest challenges maybe you can share, and maybe the takeaways that our audience can learn from them.
Maybe I'll try again to start. And I think, as you said, entrepreneurship is a calling. It's maybe the only job, or one of the very few jobs you do not apply for. You just decide to get onto it.
Yeah.
And I think it really starts either of two things that often may overlap. It's either an idea or a frustration, and they go together. An idea of you think of something new that the world or people would need, and you can build a business upon. A frustration, which was as I hinted about, was very much for me. I was very happy doing work with the development finance institutions, because I really thought we're trying to help countries who needed support, etc., grow economically and socially. But with time, I felt that we were just going around in circles, and I'm not really sure we're achieving as much as we should or could. And I fought many battles internally. I won some, and I lost many. One day, I lost a very big one, and I just decided, I'm gonna repeat the word, but you hear them. I just left. And I decided, okay, I'm just going to try to do it myself, and that's drives it. I think any entrepreneur is somebody who does not want to regret not to have tried. This is fundamentally also where it is. It's not solely so-called to do good for others, etc. I think it's very self-centered. I'm trying to take care of myself. I don't want to be always chewing through, should have I done that or not? I'm going to try to do it. If it fails, it fails. It's okay. But at least I will have tried. It's a little bit joke aside. And one day I lived 6 years in Russia, and I was one day walking on the street of Moscow with a Wharton T-shirt, and a young Russian guy stopped me and asked me, "How did you get there?" And I said, "Well, I applied." And this is what entrepreneurship is all about.
I just wanted to add a personal story that extends Cyrille's last example. So I was aware of a new kind of, let's say, information management capability that was right on the horizon. And I spotted a company that was a startup, and I said, that is where I have to be. And sitting where I was, I applied and I got a no. And I said, can you tell me the one reason I got a no? And he said, okay, let's talk. And then he went through one reason. I said, maybe that's not the reason. The second reason, that's not a reason. The third reason, and he said, okay, I'll buy you a ticket, come to California, and let's have an interview. And And then I go through the interview, and that is it's a very rigorous interview. It has 2 rounds of written exams, and then the final, some kind of a panel interview. And after the first round, they said, you're in. Okay. So it was the power of conviction. I knew exactly what they were doing. I also knew that I think the same way. It's exactly the kind of ideas that I had, and there would be a place for me and an advantage for them. So that power of conviction, when you see it, you must go after it. And for till logical endpoint, but this was a nice logical endpoint.
I love that. So I think for me, one of the big insights has been that I have to be in my own leadership laboratory, because the work that I do with entrepreneurs is really helping them in developing in 4 key areas: mindset, courage, resilience, and innovation. But as an entrepreneur myself, I have to also continue to develop in those areas so that I can be effective, so that I don't get distracted and kind of start going down trails that aren't helping me advance the work that's most important. And that requires kind of a daily checking in and evaluating myself against those criteria, and then also carrying that forward in my work. And so I think as entrepreneurs, we have to start with the inner work so that we can be effective in the outer work.
That is very helpful. Wow.
Very powerful, Shawnette. That's very nice.
Some amazing advice from the panelists. I hope the audience take notes.
Preet, I'm going to extend that a little bit
Yeah,
more. So it's
go for it.
again a real life. I mean, my reading the Sun this weekend, right? Something that Shawnette said. So as entrepreneurs, we're all thinking of, oh, here's one product, whatever that product might be. It could be something technology, something else. But you start off with a mission. You start off saying, here's your problem statement, and this is what you're here to solve. And checking back, like Shawnette said, every time you go through that, am I really delivering that mission, or am I distracting myself or the whole company even from that mission? And sometimes it's very easy to distract, right? You sometimes are in the swing of things and just rolling out the next, and I'm using a digital product for example, right? The areas are all blending in, right? You may not even be able to see the difference or the distinction unless you step back and re-anchor yourself in that foundational mission. So there's out on the web, you'll see a comparison between the 2 financial products, Mint and Thrive, and how one succeeded and one didn't, and how one was anchored on the ambition and one wasn't, and how one just got caught in the digital rollout of things. And they each had a place, they each had something in time, but the one that stood the test of time was one that delivered on the core ambition. So coming back to that reality is very important as you evolve and as you go out into the market, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I think very well said. I just summarizing all of that. I feel like, again, I think it's all about the mindset, right? It's all about like what values you believe in and how much you're willing to, give up comfort, give up, just like the regular normal way of living to do something better. I think, right, at the end of the day, I think everyone here probably did something that wasn't the norm. And everyone's like, oh, wow, like, this can only be done by others, not me. And then I think it's a mindset shift where basically people go like, all right, I'm going to take this on. And as someone said, like, it's an issue that you're trying to solve. It's a problem that you're trying to solve. It either comes out of like extreme passion or extreme frustration. And I think that totally makes sense. Um, just like expanding on that a little bit, I was curious if you could give advice for students like, age like me who are in undergrad, or our audience as well. If how do we go about, like the entrepreneurial journey while you're still in school? Sometimes people mention like, oh yeah, you should go for networks, try to establish, mentors in the industry, get as much exposure as possible. Maybe someone says no, like start a company in college so you get the exposure beforehand. before you can, go ahead and actually establish a company. Someone says, like, just like focus on professional aspects, like climb to the corporate ladder, and like at one point you will realize like, oh yeah, there's this idea and like you should pursue it. I know obviously there is not like a set path to it. I was wondering if you had any advice or take on this.
Let me
I
try.
would say,
Oh,
go
please.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right. For full disclosure, family disclosure, my son dropped out of school to start his own company. So it's a little bit here is, entrepreneur, son and father.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying here is, I started, I really started my entrepreneur journey when I turned 60, literally almost on my birthday. And his first job and only job so far in his life has been to be the CEO of a company he started. So on the one hand, he had to learn everything. Even he had no idea about the company, or if you have a CFO, an accountant, all those things. He just had an idea, and he had something that I do share with him. I think most entrepreneur is an obsession. Most entrepreneurs will fail. In fact, it'd be even interesting to have more stories about those who fail. Most fail. It's okay, If you're scared of failing, you'll never succeed. And you have to be obsessive about what about your idea, to the point I'm talking about networking, mentoring. A lot of people will find you weird, because you're trying to do something that's not been done. Okay, even if it's just like to set up another ice cream parlor. Why do you think you can make it? With another ice cream parlor where everybody can walk, to a supermarket and find all type of, very good ice cream.
Absolutely.
You need to have this crazy idea, that makes you willing to jump out of the plane with some thread and cloth and sew your parachute as you're falling. And if you do not have that, you will always be kind of afraid of your own shadow, and you're sure to fail, I would say. So to answer your question, don't be afraid, to be even, to face. Most people would not understand what you're doing or why you're doing it. And that's okay. If you're convinced, the worst thing is you turn out to be wrong or too early or, mistaken. So big deal. You will learn. I always told my wife who was concerned about Jacob dropping out of school, 5 years later, he already had maybe 10 MBAs under his belt. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
I would say focus on learning and where you can apply that learning. And if you're passionate and you have an idea, create your company and apply what you're learning and get the opportunity to kind of get the bigger bang for the buck. But in many cases, many people don't have an idea. They're not super passionate about one thing. You can channel your learning into something that somebody else has started and help them and get, the opportunity to take the concepts that you're learning in class into that context and magnify the educational experience. So just each person knows, kind of instinctively knows what's best for them. Trust that and don't feel pressure to start something if you're not ready to start something, and don't feel pressure to not dabble and learn if that is what you're feeling led to do. But school is a great time to try a lot of different things, experience different interests, and to take learning outside of the classroom. And so just seize on every opportunity is what I would say.
Yeah, I think Shawnette, no, I completely agree. One thing is, I think I've seen a lot of startups, especially as I work in pharma and R&D a lot, and also some in the tech sector, that started out with an ambition, and then suddenly, you have lots of lives and families and all riding on that ambition, right? They are, so as much as you have as you should be focused on the ambition, you should also realize that you have an honesty and a responsibility to those who are counting on you. And so when there is, and therein comes things like, you may be you may have an investment of several $1 million, but how to use it somewhat frugally for the things that you need. That is one kind of responsibility. Then a responsibility to be honest and transparent. When you're interviewing and hiring, be very transparent about the story, the roadmap, what you want, where you will be or where you will not be, or what you do not know about. Because I've seen several folks that have had to really lose out a lot on family and things like that. And there are very heartbreaking stories in the entrepreneurial world as well. So that is a responsibility for every entrepreneur. And to the learning part, yes, learn wide and learn deep. The skills of tomorrow are never going to be just one thing. The skills of tomorrow are going to be cross-functional, and somewhere where you have to really bring many things together to succeed on a personal level, on a social level, and on the entrepreneurial journey as well. So never forget the humility. There's a humility to learning, right? That comes with it, and so don't forget that aspect as well. Yeah.
It's a very interesting point that you bring up, Santha. Because I think especially in our age, I think Shawnette also mentioned about this, like you should try to amass, or you should try to gain as much knowledge as possible. You should try to like perfect skills, I guess. Like learn or get those experiences. I think Cyrille said like take risks. If go for it. I think what I'm curious about is, would you say like specializing in one area is better than being a journalist when you want to be an entrepreneur? Because especially right now in our age, I think people focus more on like, okay, I need to know coding, or like I need to know this one particular skill to be good at it, and then I can learn everything else. But I'm just curious, would you say like being a journalist is still better off in the long run, or maybe in the short run as well, compared to like being a specialist in the one area? And how has that spanned out for you?
Oh, that's an excellent question. And I'm not sure whether there's only one way to answer it.
Yes.
My view, first, an entrepreneur, although whatever the biographer would write, is never somebody who succeeds alone. And one of the critical factors of a successful entrepreneur is when she or he has been able to recruit, the right people to work on the journey. And what Santha said about transparency, etc., is absolutely key. When you're basically selling a vision, and I mean that's been my case with my company. I got a bunch of great people who resigned from great jobs to follow me. First it's a huge responsibility, but it's working because I was 100% transparent about what it is, so they could make their own decision. So then when they have made their decisions, pass them. They're like me, waking up at night, screaming, say, are we going to make it? As what about our runway? All this is normal. And so to your question, look, I was trained as a lawyer, and I've not been practicing law directly, even not for many, many years. But it's still hugely useful because, as dealing with legal issues or dealing with lawyers, etc., is almost a daily fact of our business life. I still can, detect a good or a bad lawyer in a few seconds. So this is, this core skill remains extremely useful. Okay. Second thing is, again, I mean, this is one of the first things you learn in school. Just hire people stronger than you are. And it's just not like I'm not saying that just to be cute. It is vital. It is absolutely vital. The idea that one can succeed alone, maybe it happens once in a while, but I'm sure statistically, 99% of successful entrepreneurs are the ones who were self-aware of what they were good at and less good at, were brutal about bringing, people who were just way better than they were in many other ways. So to your question, I'm trying to answer your question. To be a journalist, I'll give you a final example. As I said, I've been working in development finance, for many years, and very often, quote unquote kids, students came to me and said, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to go and work in developing countries." And then, I'm like passionate about. And I was like, "Yeah, that's great, but your emotions are not that relevant to people who need to put food on the table, get educated, etc. What hard skill do you have? A great chemist, a great biologist, a great lawyer, is more useful than say who's had some general degree on. In fact, I'm not sure exactly what it is. At the end of the day, you need to get things done. I'll leave it there.
Cyrille, exactly. I was just going to say second Cyrile's thing. Be a generalist for many things, but have one deep skill to go after, one deep skill that you're deep in. And I also say this to people that are graduating, right? What should I take for my bachelor's? What should I, and I even encourage these youngsters to not take such a generalist bachelor's degree even, right? There are many, for example, there's bachelor's of business administration. I said, which business will you administer if you don't have one deep skill? And so you need to have one deep skill. And I keep telling, get your physics right, your chemistry right, your math right, your economics right, all of those deep things right. Have a solid foundation, go deep in one thing, whatever is your passion, and then layer a second level of generalism afterwards, which comes from experience and all of that. So, yeah.
So I agree. And to just add a little bit of context, from my time in the Army as an Army officer, you are really trained to be very much a generalist. And then based off of the role that you're in, you develop a much deeper knowledge in order to be able to make sure that everything is happening in accordance with that, to lead the people. But it also, I think that one of the things that being a generalist equips you to do is to develop your critical thinking skills. When you have a depth of knowledge in things, often you want to be the one executing everything, but that's not how you're going to get work done leading a company. You're going to get work done through conversations and through the types of questions that you ask and the guidance that you give to those who have the responsibility for those technical areas. And so I think it's important, when you're a young entrepreneur, to spend a lot of time learning about everything. And as you identify where your interests lie and where the needs are in order to move the business forward, then go deeper in acquiring that knowledge and use that to make sure that the things that need to happen are happening within the business. But I think being a generalist equips you because you don't know where things might develop in the future. You don't know where your interests might lie. You don't know. There are just so many things that you don't know and that you can't know and plan for. And so the more that you develop knowledge across a range of domains, the better equipped that you'll be to lead the business.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may just add one thing, I think what Shawnette just said is great, but I really think because, in fact, a good generalist is somewhat of a specialist on other things, but is aware that, somebody's just a true specialist will always be better than you are.
Absolutely.
And what you want to do. And the term Shawnette used, critical thinking, is vital, not only in entrepreneurships, in many things in life. And critical thinking comes to being able to compose, absorb, and think through complex, situations and mechanism. Life is never a binary system. Code is like that, but then that's all there is to it. Life is way more complex than we always imagine. And one more thing I may say as maybe a recommendation for students. When I went to Wharton, I was a humanities guy in a quant school, so I can tell I got so it's a bloodbath for me. I never made the dean's list, but I also made sure, that I took only classes in things I knew nothing about, because I thought, I need to learn. So I took more quant classes than I could, stomach. I barely stayed alive, but that's okay. My goal was not, to be, and this still today, it helps me, because I always, told my kids or others, I walked into Wharton being number illiterate. I left Wharton, being number literate. And I'll never be a quant. I'll never be, the guys do the great thing with numbers. But now I get it. I understand it. And so do that, both in school and in restaurants. Always order what you do not know.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's true. Just a personal story on that, actually. It's a very simple one, but I think it gets the point across. When I went to a restaurant, like it was an Indian restaurant, and I'm sure you all have had mango lassi. And so we went to this restaurant. One of my friends, he always orders mango lassi, and so I'm like, why are you not ordering something else? And he's like, no, this is the safe bet. Like, I know I'm gonna get a good one when I basically drink this drink, right? And I'm like, that's true, but also this is not like it's a safe choice, but it's not a good choice because you're not exploring other options. And then at that point, I made him like try strawberry lassi, and he liked it even more the mango lassi, right? So I think that the point is like if you just try to play it safe, you're gonna be a part of the mediocrity, like everyone else. If you try a little bit of risk, yes, there is a chance to fail. Yes, you might not like that drink, but what if you like it? What happens if it succeeds? Rather than what happens if it fails, right? Because if it fails, you're going to be back where you started. But if it succeeds, it's going to lead you to a place where you'll never be able to come back from, right? And I think that's what the goal is. That's what like drives everyone forward.
If I may, I just have an objection to one part of what you said. If you fail, you're not back to where you started.
True.
You're in fact, you've learned a lot. And it's why you should, it's a good investment.
Absolutely.
Always, going to Wharton to me was like, it was crystal clear. It was an investment of 2 years. At the time, I know the prices are going up. It was a huge amount of money. I wanted to get the most out of it. Absolutely. I had to. I mean, it's just not even an option.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense, Cyrille. Yeah, and to add on to that, there's this philosophy where like you in life, especially like when we make decisions, it's never like a linear line. Like you go from point A to point B, but you cannot ever return to point A again. Like even if you think you're going back or you fail, you're reaching a new point C, but you're never going like back to it, right? It's like a 3D. If I don't know if I'm able to explain it, but like it's a 3D thing. Like you go to different points in life, but never the same point again because it's not a linear. It doesn't go back and forth. It always leads to new opportunities and possibilities. On that note, in the interest of time, I also wanted to ask you, like, as we talk about more about entrepreneurship and like what kind of skills you can get, if you can get even like go even deeper into this. And maybe because I know most of the audience is Gen Z, I was curious, where do you see like the biggest opportunities for Gen Z in the next decade? Or so, like, there's emphasis on sustainability. We see this all the LSMs coming up. The language models, AI, ML. Like Web 3.0 was a big deal, like, couple years ago. Now no one's talking about it, kind of. So just curious, like, where do you see the trend going in the next decade? Mostly this is for like Cyrille, but I'm happy to, hear everyone's opinion.
I almost would like to take a pass on this one because I have to say I'm losing touch with well, no, I'm not losing touch with the new generations, but Gen Z, I would not even be able to describe. So, what does it stand for? How does it behave? And sometimes, and look, it's funny enough. I mentioned him, my son. His company started 5 years ago. Is in AI. The last fundraise they had, it was before ChatGPT came out. he had to explain to each investor that AI might matter and might become something significant. Now he's preparing for the next round. Now the question is rather like everybody's doing AI, so it's in this kind of very loud and buzz, and it's differentiation becomes more difficult. So to me, what do I know? And this is what I'm sticking with. To state the obvious, our planet is under stress. I've not come up with any idea or seen any ideas how it could be fixed with public money or free money. I mean, public money can have a role, and I come from that sector, but I've seen the limits of it. I'm not going to argue that every social problem can be addressed using market-driven mechanism, but I know a lot more can be. Let me try to give you 2 quick examples. The sector I'm in, renewable energy. Even the poorest household, in fact, has access to energy, But to put it simply, it's a lousy product, very low quality, and tend to be very expensive.
Right. Okay.
So the challenge is to create a business model to deliver, a better product, even at equal, even lower price very often, and then you can make money. So that conceptually, it's easy to say, although still go and find out what business model works. But strangely enough, the big pools of capital in the world, institutional investors, there is a deep gap of knowledge, human knowledge. One of the issues, for example, in markets where I am, developing countries where the demand for power far exceeds supply, where the economies are growing, etc. Say like it's a perfect world to invest in. Okay, and the needs are to be counted in the billions per year. But when you talk to 95% of the big firms, big investors, etc., they're afraid to go in. Why? It's because they have so little internal experience in those markets that it prevents them to say, "Oh, we have never done that." And it goes around in circle and breaking this vicious circle. I mean, it's one of the things I'm trying to do with my company. I think will succeed. But it's amazing how something so obvious, is difficult to quote unquote sell. So, to your point of what Gen Z say, the sky is almost, unfortunately, the limit of what still needs to be done to bring, investors with risk-adjusted return to some of the social and environmental issues we're facing. And it can be done. It's a very sticky process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Curious if other panelists would like to give it a go.
Yeah, so the one thing I wanted to add very much, Cyrille, is I think in the past there has been a trend to kind of see what is that what is that thing, one thing I'll make that move and shake the world kind of story, right?
Yeah.
The problems are different in different local spaces. So I would encourage the Gen Z folks to go back to their roots, their local regions, to find the problems and therefore the solutions that matter for their communities. It is so important, exactly as Cyrille said, in today and tomorrow's world, that is what people should look for. Will it get the same rate of return as, let's say the Googles of the world or something like that? I do not know, but perhaps all of the, and I think somewhere the Gen Z, the moral compass of the Gen Z generation is also changing from being a little out there to being a little more inward focused, to being a little more societally focused. So the two may jive together, and therefore the returns may not be there, the returns of that kind, but the return of a different kind, right? Of what you do to your communities, the satisfaction it brings from that. So that is one. And also to add to what Cyrille said, one core skill that entrepreneurs need is the art of storytelling, the art of bringing conviction, the art of bringing people along the journey.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the person bringing out, quote unquote, a certain product is left to do everything. And perhaps the time is now where some people are doing this broad scale evangelization and some people are building the actual product. So how there could be two different skills and two different traits and two different scales at which these have to play. And therefore that may be another thing for people to pick up. Where will you get the money? That is a different, I don't know the answer to that, but it seems like a crying need.
Absolutely.
So I love what both of you all said, and I want to build on it and kind of shift the perspective just a little bit. I think that one of the things with when you start thinking about, okay, how do you make a difference? Where are there opportunities? We start thinking immediately, well, what are the problems? And those have been well articulated up to this point, and they're vast and incredibly complex. And when you go about trying to solve a problem, you have to first really understand it. You have to really understand the pain points that it's presenting for the people that are wrestling with this problem. And when I see all of the social challenges, the different, geopolitical concerns and the economic challenges, and we could just keep the list going, environmental, so on and so forth, to me, it's reflective of the lack of love, that we have an issue with love and people really understanding what that is, what that looks like in action. And when you look at a lot of the surveys and things that those who are part of Gen Z articulate, it's a constant thread through the feedback that's provided. And so where I think an opportunity really exists for Gen Z is to go deep in understanding what is love, what does it look like in practice, and how can we harness the tools that are emerging to help cultivate that understanding in the rest of the world, regardless of generation, regardless of nationality or religion or any of the things that we use to kind of bin ourselves separately. And how can we then use that greater understanding to begin to tackle the challenges like climate change and economic inequality, so on and so forth? Because I think that unless we get at the root of it, then we're just taking bites around the edges. And if we just think that an algorithm is going to solve it, we've seen the damage that algorithms have done to our ability to relate, to our ability to show love, to our ability to receive love, to our ability to communicate face to face comfortably with people, so on and so forth, that we have to first get at the root of the problem and then use those insights to start to design new solutions.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Well, I think all of those are good points. Thank you so much for sharing them. In the interest of time, we don't actually have time. So just wanted to have like a 30-second, maybe like just, final remarks for our audience, if anything, that you would like to share.
I'll try and really echo, I think, wonderful, very intelligent, comments of Shawnette, because it really relates. Everyone should know what do you not want to do in terms of career. When I went to Wharton, there was this movie Wall Street, greed is good. Okay, I'm all for, as I say, for market mechanism. But at the end of the day, what's going to bring you happiness? What's going to give you self-fulfillment? Especially, let's face it, most of us live in countries which are pretty, safer than average, and we're wealthier than average. So, love or sense of morality is not because we're better. To be moral is a struggle. It's an effort. It's a discovery. And to do it in anything we do in life, it's a challenge. It's not impossible. We never get it 100%. but we have to keep our eyes on it. And on eyes on, how ourselves individually, not others, what are we doing? What any modest step is a good step. I beware of big leap forwards, because they're often dangerous, but keep at it.
I would say one, just commend anyone who is spending the time thinking about doing something entrepreneurial and contributing. But I would also encourage you to invest in the journey within, so that you're able to be as effective as the world needs you to be in helping us solve complex problems, and build your community as you go, so that you continue to have support to move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so very well said. And I just wanted to add maybe one thing, which is, the journey is never something that you can chalk. Look for those serendipitous moments, look for intuition, look for self-awareness, look for these hidden things that are actually guiding you a certain way. And those are also real opportunities. We have enough, enough algorithms, enough tools, enough. In fact, people are beginning to shy away from them, but apply them to what it really matters. Society, the earth, and any other problems that can be addressed at scale, locally and globally.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much, panelists, for today's session. I think this was a pleasure. I learned so much. And yeah, it's been a total honor to have you guys here. And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Preet. Beautifully done.
What is it?